I met a gypsy.
I can say this now.
Yeah, so we do.
Come get me. No, don't.
The cool thing too, I think, with racing that I've thought about a lot recently is that, let's use Triple Eight for an example. That's like the best team in the pit, one of the best teams in the V8 Supercar paddocks. All right. So to get to that level of organisation requires really great people. And I think that what becomes so addictive about being a part of a race team that performs at a high level is that you are surrounded by these really great people, whether it's great drivers,
Totally.
great engineers, great mechanics. Like, everybody that is in that organization has been picked. It's like a natural selection process, you know, like evolution of that race team means that every new employee is better and better and better, and the culture gets better. And I think that that's a big part of it as well. And there's an accountability of being kind of to the right of somebody great and to the left of somebody great, and then you feel like you need to kind of be as much a part of that. So I think that that's a big thing. So when you say people, I think that that is a huge factor of it, is that you're just around these high level achievers. And when people say like you're the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time around, it's like, well, man, there's a whole organization of people that you're around that is going to kind of lift you up as well. And then that everybody's feeding off everybody. Yeah,
we have it's definitely a process of making sure that you've got the best people, but also that the culture of the organization brings out the best in those people. So we've still got a handful of employees who've been there since 2003 when my dad first took over the team and started Triple Eight Race Engineering over here. So it was in the UK in the 90s. That was when he started it in the 90s. In the British Touring Car Championship, bought a team over here in 2003, and so Mark Dutton, our team manager, Jeremy Moore, technical director, although he did leave for a bit, worked for Porsche in Germany for 5 years in the middle. Kenny Mack at KRE, who does our engines. There's a core group of people. Ty Friel, who's number 1 mechanic on Jamie's car. They've all been there since 2003. And they're there because not only through loyalty, but because they're high performers. And they know how to instill that culture of high performance in the other people around them. So then it's making sure that the other people lift their game. They have to have high performance coming in. They have to have the right mentality and attitude. But you're right there. Having a few shots under the table. It's a case of making sure that we identify in each of those people how to bring out the best in them. And that becomes harder as generations change. So at the moment, I can look at our organization and say we've got exceptional staff retention of the vast majority of our staff and the longevity of time that they've been there, but we don't have such great staff retention of younger generations. And there is a definite generational attitude shift of the people who we're bringing in from university now, or within the last few years come out of university, and so we're needing to adapt our culture to bring out the best in those people, because there's more focus on work-life balance, and there's more focus on what an employer, it's not only what you can bring to the organization, it's what the organization can do for you as well. It's not a privilege to work at Triple Eight Race Engineering. We try to make it a great place to work, and that comes a lot from winning races. But equally, we need to recognize that if they can find better work-life balance and a better pay packet, more reasonable hours somewhere else, then they're probably going to take it. It's not... We can't just rely on how cool it is to work in motorsport anymore to guarantee that they'll stay with us forever. And that's a process that Jamie Whincup and I are kind of working through at the moment as to how we work that into Triple Eight's next era, which is kind of, we're in that transition phase at the moment, which is interesting.
Yes, that's very interesting that you say that. So There's a thing, so for me in the motocross world, like that's sort of where I come from, is more so two wheels. But that is like the culture within the industry is like, well, you know, you want to work in the industry, right? Like you want to get some free tires and some free gear, and then sort of there's a bit of a culture within that industry of, you know, you just get these young kids that'll do it for free essentially, and then, you know, they'll kind of grow up and do their thing, and then when they realize that they want some real money and that they want to actually buy a house and that it's not really going anywhere, then the next kid's coming up that wants the gear for free, and like it's a kind of a weird sort of culture. And then you end up, I've noticed that there's a lot of companies where you end up with guys that's just how they started. There's no real degrees in the sport. There's no like legitimate outside
qualification.
Yeah, almost. Yeah, it's like there's people aren't really coming in from outside the industry, bringing their skills and expertise. It's sort of such a bottom up, which I think is really good in a way. But then I also think you just end up with that constant turnover of people that, you know, it's like you'll get these new kids that come up that just want the free parts and the free gear. It's not a real career type deal, you know, and I think it's a problem because people want to work in motorsport. So I think that you guys can identify that, yes, it is cool to work for V8 Racing, but you can't just sell it on the cool. Like this has to stand alone as a great organization to work for. It's got to go both ways, and it become like a real company that real people work for, and you can have a real future.
Yeah, I've kind of developed a little motto for myself that when I say it to other people kind of more outside of V8, they understand. We can't have, our culture shouldn't be based on winning races. We should be winning races because of having a good culture. And now that we're going through this interesting transition period and expansion, I mean, if anyone had said to us this time last year that V8 Race Engineering would be expanding, you know, in the middle of COVID when we're just starting to go racing again, but we just finished developing ventilators for the government and working on them for the WHO and things. Incredible period of diversification, but you know, we didn't think that it would lead to leasing a new workshop and investing in $1.5 million worth of new equipment and machinery. And new people and training staff up, which is a really exciting period. But yeah, if anyone had said that this time last year, I would have been like, what a fucking laugh, man. But then we're going through that at the moment, and it's a really interesting period of how do we manage that expansion and that growth. And actually this is now when we need to bring people in from outside of motorsport, because currently you know, you're talking about how it's always the same people coming up and you know, it's the same circle over and over again. And that results in the same kind of people. You're not bringing in different ways of thinking. You're not getting the diversity from outside. And that then ultimately leads to a lack of innovation. So one of the key things I think to bringing, we work in an industry that survives on being innovative and forward thinking. And if you don't have a diverse workplace, and if you don't have injections of new ways of thinking, then you're going to fall behind in terms of innovation. You need that diversity of thinking in order to be innovative. And that's why it's so important to be able to bring in those different ways of thinking and pull people in from elsewhere. And this expansion has required us to bring people in who have specialist knowledge of these machines and equipment from outside of motorsport, because nobody within motorsport is doing what we're doing, and very few people outside of motorsport are doing what we're doing. We're investing in machinery that doesn't exist in Australia, let alone Queensland. So we need the people from outside to come in, and they're not going to have the same mentality as we do in motorsport of, you know, on a race weekend you work stupid hours when you have to. We're trying, it's got a lot better. COVID has forced us to cut our cloth accordingly, and that's definitely been a good thing. But still, if you need to dig deep and you need to do an all-nighter to get a car on track the next day, you do it. And that's just the way it is, and people coming in from outside don't necessarily have that mindset. So there's a definite difference between if you look at the hours that people do, if you're race team, because you value your weekends, you'd rather dig deep and work until stupid o'clock in the morning to get a car in the transporter because it means a weekend at home. Whereas if you're not on race team and you're predominantly manufacturing focused, you might want to come in and work a weekend because you know that when it gets to 4:30, you want to go home and spend time with your family in the evenings.
Yeah.
So it's different ways of thinking, and both there's no wrong or right way, but it's finding the balance of keeping everyone happy in a very different workplace. It's a really interesting challenge, and it's something that I'm enjoying understanding more and sinking my teeth into more over the next few years.
If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe. And to listen to the full 3-hour podcast, search Gypsy Tales in your favorite podcast platform or click the link in the description below. Gypsy Gang.